The Rgba Levels effect in Dashwood Editor Essentials works basically the same way as Luma Levels, except that Rgba stands for red, green, blue, and alpha, so that you can individually control those channels. Let's just apply it to this shot and have a look at how it works. Okay, so we're just going to look at the effect controls here. The first thing you'll notice is that you get a histogram. This histogram is very similar to what you would see in Photoshop. Now, this histogram does not work in Final Cut Pro 10, but that's okay because Final Cut Pro 10 has its own wonderful built-in histogram. So here I've just set this to a vertical layout, histogram, and Rgba overlay. But because Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro 7, we don't get those kinds of readouts. And when you're working with levels, it's actually pretty nice to have a histogram readout instead of just waveform. That's why we've included it in the plugin itself. We have a histogram overlay option. We don't recommend using it because it's just more rendering and more taxing on your GPU to have both of them going at once. So I'm going to turn that off for now. Now, what happens is we see a whole bunch of controls here because we're actually seeing all the separate input and output and gamma controls for each channel. What we did is we simplified it here so you can select just red, for example. So now we're only seeing the controls for the red channel. Even though all the controls for the other channels are still active, this is just what channel controls are actually being displayed to the user. So let's have a look at what we can actually do with separate red, green, and blue and alpha level controls. And so, for example, if we want to increase the red, I would just adjust the gamma. Oh, don't want to go too far. And just bring the gamma down a bit. And what's neat about the histogram, you can see where the separation is between the channels. And so if you're trying to find the correct white balance, that actually is extremely helpful. So a small shift like this, and you can go in and get even finer control. Small shift makes a big difference in the white balance. But let's say you want to do something where, I don't know, maybe you have a bit more of a 70s kind of faded look to it. Then you could adjust the whites on the input level, make it look like it was clipping, and I'll adjust the output level, the low, make it look a little more faded. And then our input level, which would be the blacks on that channel, will adjust as well. See what kind of neat effect we can get with this. So if I just turn off the effect, that's what we started with. That's what we have now. It's kind of neat and gives you some more control. Let's go have a look over in Final Cut Pro 10. So here I'm just looking at the red channel. Let's say I want to look at the green channel. Just switches automatically. We'll make some adjustments. Gonna look at something else cool. And we can see that the histograms down here are working really well. They don't go completely white the way our histograms do, but they still look pretty good. Now let's go and look at a little bit of green screen. Let's just apply green screen keying effect to this shot. Go into keying, and we'll just throw the keyer on here. Okay, so there's our key. Now, of course, the keyer in Final Cut Pro 10 is pretty good, but let's say that this key was not that great. So we've got some spill over here, and maybe the green screen wasn't completely lit evenly. Now what we can do is we can go back in and apply the Rgba levels, or you could also apply it to really anything, even if it was a PNG with a built-in alpha. Now let's select just alpha, and now I'm just going to control the alpha channel itself and try to clean it up. So I'm going to crush it a little bit, and you can see that we can control the alpha channel individually to clean up keys.